Okay, I'm back. Today is March 14th, 2023, and I've got all my parts cleaned and painted. Got, the axles themselves all fixed up, knuckles, the spindles. I'm going to redo these because I don't like the way they cleaned up. Was having my son do those. He missed some areas that I want to get cleaned off there before I anyhow, I'll redo those. The rotors, I only painted here and there, but obviously some paint got onto the rotor itself. I did look into getting these turned at the Auto Hobby Shop Skills Center on base, and I'm able to get them turned for $10 a piece, but there's not quite enough material in their estimation left there to do that, because there's enough disparity across here, mainly right in there, to cause some run out. And so they would have to end up taking about 20 thousandths off. And so because they really weren't wearing the pads that bad, I'm just going to leave them alone. Because it would be worse to turn those and have not enough material there, and it gets real hot and it doesn't break well and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to get new pads for it because I already threw the other ones away. And otherwise I would reuse them because they really weren't in bad shape, too bad. But I'll get new pads and I'll run these the way they are. So all this is painted and ready to go. The axle housing I already showed is painted and ready to go. And I got this up, built these heavy duty sawhorses here so I could get this thing up at waist level, so I'm not having to bend over and do gyrations to try to do what I have to do. So now over here, I've got all my parts, everything that I ordered and knew that I would need. I've got them now. So I got this manual too. This is a 2-volume set. I got this. I forgot the name of the place I got it, but a guy at Crown, forgot his name too, told me about these. This is original shop manual. Okay, this is what the mechanics would have used back in the day, and this is specifically for my year, or 84, 85, 86 CJ7. As you may know, those years beginning in 84, I think it might have been 81. Anyway, my Jeep is what they call a wide track. So there are some differences with that. So anyhow, I'm going to be following this manual as I go along when I do this rebuild, which I'm about to begin now, in the sense that I'm going to begin reassembling. So I'll be using that, as well as a Spicer documentation that another gentleman, I believe his name is Mike, said he used. He's on You Can Do It Too, I believe is his YouTube channel. Anyway, good document for specifically for the Dana 30 as well. So what I have here, this is I've got the ring and pinion gear. This is the master rebuild kit. I've already taken the shims out, measured those and marked them. These are the ring gear bolts, replacement bolts. That is the tail seal on the pinion. And so here's the bearings. These two bearings go on the carrier itself and the race. But if you recall, when I pulled these bearings off, what I was interested in are the shims on the other side. Now, I'm using a Spartan helical differential, which is over here. I used to have a Detroit True Track in my, what was it, a 2004 TJ, and I really liked it. This is based on the same premise, the helical gears. So that's what was available for this Dana 30. That's what I'm going with. Anyhow, so even though this differential is not going to be exactly the same size as that, I still wanted those shims on there because I wanted to, A, be able to use them if needed, and B, know what kind of shimming they did in the factory, or from the factory. So in pulling those bearings off, it destroyed them, but no big deal. I got some new ones. These are bearings I got at Napa, which are actually made by SKF, but they're a direct a direct cross match to the Timken bearings, which are actually going to be the ones that I use in the new assembly. But I don't want to press those on because I don't know what the shimming is going to need to be until I get in there and do it. So I bought these expressly for the purpose of doing setup bearings. So what I'm going to do using this air-powered Dremel that I have is I'm going to remove material from the ID of these bearings. And that way I can slip these off and on. Now, just enough material to get them to slide down. The reason that is because I have to know what kind of shimming is going to be required to create a zero end play and then have a preload on that once I've installed the new bearings, which the manual I think calls for 15 thousandths, but I think that's probably a little bit much. I'm thinking on the order of maybe 5 to 10. So I'm going to make sure of that before I do it. But anyway, that's what these are for. I'm getting ready to do that. I've got the other pieces here. Let me show you those. Get this put away. Okay, so, and I've marked them. So this had to have, ooh, my Pinion. That would have been a catastrophic injury, possibly. Anyhow, this inner axle tube seal, got 2 of those. And those will go right inside where you got the carrier in there. They're on either side of the axle tube. So I had to get these in, obviously, before I can start reassembling. And I just got these today. The hub seals, this goes in the back side of the rotor for the bearing seal back there. I've got my new oil baffle. These are some shims. Got my new oil baffle here because that one was destroyed when I took it out. And I've got all of my shims marked as to what their thicknesses are. And so those are all in these little bags right here. And these are the, some of them are the Pinion, sorry. Some of them are the Pinion shims. The others are for the actual differential, and I've got a myriad of different thicknesses: 2000s, 4000s, 9000s, 10, 12, 15, 20, 28, and 63. So I'm going to be using those to set up the differential, the carrier, and I'll talk about that a little bit more once I get to that point. But right now, what I'm going to be doing is getting these bearings set up as setup bearings by turning, or not turning, but removing material on the ID so I can put that thing in and out. And then I've done a calculation on the Pinion, and I guess I'll go ahead and explain what I did. So this Pinion, according to the service manual, is supposed to be 2.25 inches, I believe it said, from the center line of the differential or axle or housing. That would be the center line, basically where I'm pointing right there. So this is the head, the top of the head of the Pinion is supposed to be 2.25 inches from that center line, when you take a measurement. The problem is this Pinion says 3.625. So I called G2 and said, what does that number mean? The guy on the phone didn't really know what he was talking about, so he couldn't tell me. But I did more research on a Jeep forum, and what this is it's MHD. Forgot what the term is. Manufacturer. I'll explain it later. But basically what they did, it's MHD. What they did is they took their measurement, not from the center line to the top of the Pinion head, or this face. They took it to the back side of the Pinion. So here. So from the center line to here, the backside of that is what that number represents right there. Okay, so with that in mind, what I was able to do is measure the thickness of that pinion head from the top surface. I can't do my phone and this at the same time. From the top of the head to the back side of the head on that pinion, and then measure this one as well. And there was a difference, albeit it was only 10 thousandths. So I'll explain more of that as I get into the actual assembly, but I wrote some numbers down here. So the pinion head, the new pinion head, measures 1.355 inches. That's the thickness of the head. That's that dimension right there, okay? The old one measured 1.365, okay? So it's a little thicker, actually, leaving a delta of 10 thousandths, a difference of. So the old stack, not including the oil baffle, but the old stack of shims that were used from the factory with that pinion head was 27 thousandths total. So the new, it would stand to reason that the new would need 10 additional thousandths because it's a smaller head than this one. So I am going to start by setting the pinion depth using a shim pack of 37 thousandths, which is what this is right here. I can't pick all of them up. Some of them are really thin. So I think there's 4 or 5 of them in there that give me 37 thousandths, and that's based on my measuring each one of those with my dial caliper. And I also measured the thickness of the oil baffle, which that's included in the stack up, right? Because that is going to be actually the first thing that goes in as you're looking at the differential. It'd be the first piece in, and then those other shims sit on top of it, just like I have it oriented here. This was set in there like that. So, and then of course the race is behind that. Okay, that's that race. So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is, because the pinion head on the new one is only 10 thousandths different than this one, that means that it would be further down in. It's further away from the center line by 10 thousandths. Therefore, I need to add 10 thousandths in shimming to that pinion, theoretically, to get it where it's supposed to be. Okay, I've got my bearing marked here with a red Sharpie. I don't know if you can see that, but basically those are just a guide to tell me how far I've gone down with this Dremel here. So here we go. Okay, not quite there yet. Getting close though. I can feel it wanting to go on. I can do a little bit more to it. Okay, that took a total of 9 passes. Again, I just wanting to creep up on it, you know, not to take too much material off, but so I just put a thin coat of this gear oil on there, and I can finally slip that on, and it's nice and snug. Snug as a bug in a rug. So that's perfect. Okay, so that's one. I've got to do the other one. I won't bore you with those details, but you can see how that was done. So I just got to do the same thing to the other bearing. Okay, I got those done. So on this ring gear side, you can see, oh, I got a cockeyed on there. You got to get it set on there just right for it to go down. There it is. So that's all the way on. And the other thing is you gotta let the bearings cool down, because obviously when they're hot, they're gonna be expanded some. So this is a nice snug fit. So what I've done here is I'm gonna go ahead and paint this side of this thing here so I know it's the setup bearing, but I'm putting them back in the box, and I've got this one marked ring side. This is where the ring gear will go on this back side here, because there might be as much as a half a thou or thousandths of an inch difference between that surface and the other one. Hopefully not, but there could be. So I know this bearing will fit this side. So actually I'm gonna get that painted. Okay, so just to reiterate, and I got that one marked. What this is going to allow me to do is to, when I'm setting up that carrier for end play, it's going to allow me to take the bearing off and on, because the shims, and I've got a bunch of these, go behind the bearing on the carrier like that, and then the bearing goes over that like so. Oh. And then the race, of course, will fit over that. So I'll be putting that in and out of the housing several times to determine how much shimming I need to do on the ring gear side and how much on the non-ring gear side. And you know, if you press the bearings that you're going to use in the final setup on, then you'd have to pull them back off every time, and that's just a big pain in the butt. So this should serve to mitigate that and make the whole setup process easier. Then once I know what my shim thicknesses need to be on the carrier side, both the ring side and the non-ring side, then I'll press on, you know, put the shims on there, press on the final bearings that will go in, and then install that. But now what I have to do is get the new pinion ready. And so what that is going to involve is getting the race, let's see if you can see this, getting the race associated with that bearing, which that's already pulled off, it's just loose there. This bearing, the new bearing, will be pressed on with that oil slinger on there. It will be pressed on, but the race associated with that needs to also be prepared so I can take it in and out, because I don't know what the shim thickness is going to be behind that race, like the setup is here. So it'll be sitting down in the housing like this, right? With the, actually, yeah, with the, almost dropped that thing. With this piece in, am I getting this backwards? Okay, I was drawing a blank there for a second. Too many things going on, I guess. So this oil baffle goes in first, then the shims on top of it, and then the race. Okay, so the race has to be able to be taken in and out. So because I want to be able to find out what the pinion depth needs to be for sure before I commit to pressing that race in. So that's going to be how that goes. So I'm going to get that race ready. And then also I'll have to, on this tail bearing here, I'll also have to get the ID of it cleaned out enough to where it can slip off and on as well. Again, these are setup bearings and setup races that's going to make the whole process go a lot faster. Okay, so I'm marking the outside diameter of this race. This is the old race that came out of the housing. pinion sits down inside of this, or the pinion bearing. And so I'm going to take material off of this here so that I can fit it down in the housing and slip it in and out of there as I'm adjusting my shims to get the proper pinion gear depth. So here we go. You know what? I'm going to use a different tool than this. I'll be right back. All right, I got this thing set up. So I've got lines marked on that, again, with the red marker here. And I'm using my old die grinder, or angle grinder, I should say. And a flap disc. I used a lot of these. Harbor Freight has them. I used them a lot when I was restoring the Jeep body. So these things are great. Should do this job just fine. Okay, here's inside the differential carrier area, and the pinion goes down through there. So the bearings that I just prepared go sit down inside here once they're installed on the carrier. The pinion gear goes down through here. So what I've been preparing now is this race that's going to have to go down in there. See if I can do this with the camera at the same time. Okay, it doesn't quite fit yet. I can tell it wants to go in, but it's not quite there. So the reason I'm having to do this, again, just to reiterate, is because down inside of here will be the oil baffle, and then shims, and then this race. Well, I don't know exactly what the shim set is going to have to be to get that pinion height at the right place for optimum gear mesh. So I want to be able to take this race in and out of there to adjust as I go along, and that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, I got this bearing where it needs to be, or race, I should say. Took 4 passes to get it there. And you have to let it cool down, though, because there's expansion, right? So it would be tighter going in than after it cools down. So I've got a deep sink over there. I was able to just cool it down with water and then wipe it off. So it's got a nice snug, but it'll go in fit if you get it positioned right. Hard to do this. There it is. Okay, so key thing being that there's no play in there. It's down in there. And so it should be able to take it right back out. Hard to do with holding the camera too, but because if you get it cocked at all, it's not gonna want to come out. Goodness. I did it a second ago when I had 2 free hands. It was much easier. All right, let me get this taken out. Okay, got it out. So I verified it too. It just fits down in there. So that takes care of the pinion, shim adjustment on this side. There is no shim adjustment on the tail side. They're just preload shims for preload on the bearings, which I think is supposed to be 10 inch-pounds or something like that. I'll have to verify that. But so I'm going to mark this race so I know that it's my setup race. And then the final step will be to prepare the tail side of the pinion, that bearing that has to be able to slip off and on. All right. And so here's the new pinion. Actually, it's got to go this way. So you can see that doesn't fit on there yet, because I want that bearing to go down over this machined surface here. A little bit more work here. Okay, that process didn't take too long. So, having let the bearing cool down all the way, I can test this fit. Again, I want it to slide down over this journal easily, but not too easy, because otherwise it'd be sloppy. Good, and that's perfect. So I'm able to grab the inside part of the race, the inner portion of the bearing, and I'm not getting any play at all, but yet I have a nice. So I'll be able to take that off and on as needed. So, all right, well, that's going to do it for today. What I'll be doing tomorrow is beginning to actually set things up. So I'll get the races installed, the race for this bearing installed. The other race on this side obviously will be coming in and out as needed. I can also, actually the carrier race goes in as a unit, and then the bearing caps go over top. So, but the first thing I'll have to do is put my inner tube seals in, and so I'll show you guys all that tomorrow. So that's going to be a wrap, and thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys soon.